In the heart of the mist-laden mountains, nestled amidst ancient cherry blossoms, lay a Zen monastery renowned for its tranquility and wisdom. The sound of flowing water from a nearby lake harmonized with the rustling leaves, creating a melody that seemed to ease every troubled soul that approached. Here lived Master Ryū, a sage known far and wide for his teachings. He was a man of few words but profound lessons, drawing countless seekers to his monastery. His philosophy was simple yet profound. Pain is not the enemy, it is the guide. One such seeker was Kaito, a young man burdened by the scars of his past. Little did he know, the journey to this monastery would change not only his life, but also the lives of many others. Kaito's journey to the monastery began at dawn, the world still cloaked in shadows. His heart was heavy, burdened with memories that refused to fade. Loss, betrayal, and unspoken regrets. He had heard tales of Master Ryū and hoped to find answers to questions that haunted him. The mountain path was steep and winding, the air growing thinner with each step. Yet, something about the serene beauty of the surroundings gave him strength. He paused occasionally to admire the towering trees that whispered in the wind, the distant roar of a waterfall, and the fleeting sight of a deer disappearing into the forest. When Kaito finally reached the monastery gates, he hesitated. The ornate wooden doors, adorned with carvings of lotus flowers, seemed to beckon him, yet he felt unworthy to enter. Gathering his courage, he stepped inside, his heart pounding with anticipation. He was greeted by the sound of wind chimes and the gentle hum of monks chanting. In the courtyard, Master Ryū sat cross-legged under a cherry blossom tree, his gaze serene yet piercing. Without looking up, the master spoke, as if sensing Kaito's arrival. "You carry a great weight," Ryū said softly. "Are you ready to let it go?" Kaito nodded, his voice caught in his throat. He didn't know how, but he was ready to try. Inside the monastery, Kaito found himself surrounded by a calm, so profound it felt almost otherworldly. The chanting monks, the flowing water from a nearby stream, and the gentle rustle of cherry blossom petals all seemed to whisper the same message: breathe, let go. Master Ryū led Kaito to a shaded courtyard where a simple wooden table stood. On it was a large bowl filled to the brim with water. The master gestured for Kaito to sit. "Tell me," Ryū said, "why have you come here?" Kaito hesitated but then poured out his story, how he had been wronged by someone he trusted, how the memory of betrayal haunted him, and how the pain felt as fresh as the day it happened. Without saying a word, Master Ryū lifted the bowl and extended it toward Kaito. "Hold this," Ryū instructed. Kaito obeyed, gripping the bowl tightly. At first, it seemed easy, but as the minutes passed, his arms began to ache. The water sloshed slightly, threatening to spill over. "Master, it's heavy," Kaito admitted, his voice strained. Ryū nodded. "Is the bowl getting heavier, or are you simply growing tired of holding it?" Kaito's eyes widened in realization. Ryū continued, "This is your pain. It is not the weight itself, but your refusal to set it down that burdens you." Kaito sat in silence, staring at the bowl. The lesson was clear, yet he struggled to accept it. How could he let go of something so deeply ingrained? Master Ryū rose from his seat and gestured for Kaito to follow. Together, they walked along a winding path that led to a quiet grove behind the monastery. The air was cool, and the ground was blanketed with fallen leaves, their crunch underfoot the only sound. They stopped before a towering tree whose bark was marked with deep scars. Some of the scars were old, faded, and smooth to the touch, while others were fresh, oozing sap. The tree stood tall, its branches stretching toward the sky as if embracing the world despite its wounds. "This tree has endured countless storms," Ryū said, resting a hand on the trunk. "Its scars tell a story of pain, yet it continues to grow, to thrive. Why do you think that is?" Kaito stared at the tree, his brow furrowed. "Because it doesn't hold onto the storm," he replied slowly, as if the words were forming in his heart rather than his mind. Ryū smiled. "Exactly. The storm comes, it leaves its mark, and it passes. The tree accepts the scar, but does not carry the storm in its heart. And so it grows." Kaito reached out to touch the rough bark. For the first time, he wondered if he, too, could learn to grow despite his scars. As they walked back to the monastery, Ryū spoke again. You cannot erase the past, Kaito, but you can decide how much power it holds over you. Will you let it define you, or will you grow beyond it? The words lingered in Kaito's mind long after they returned to the quiet of the monastery. He couldn't sleep that night, his thoughts circling the tree and its scars. He had carried his storm for so long. Could he finally let it go? The next morning, Master Ryū called Kaito to the meditation hall. The space was simple yet serene, with paper lanterns casting a warm glow and mats arranged in neat rows. Ryū gestured for Kaito to sit. Close your eyes, the master instructed. Breathe deeply. Let your mind settle. Kaito obeyed, his breathing slow and deliberate. Now, Ryū said, his voice calm, bring to mind the source of your greatest pain. Feel it as deeply as you can. A wave of unease washed over Kaito. The memory of betrayal surfaced, his closest friend's words cutting him like a blade, the humiliation, the anger, the heartbreak. His chest tightened, and tears pricked at his eyes. Good, Ryū said. Now ask yourself, is this pain real, or is it a shadow of the past? Kaito frowned, his eyes still closed. It feels real. Does it happen now, in this moment, or does it exist only in memory? The question struck Kaito like a thunderbolt. He sat with the thought, his breathing steadying. Slowly, he began to see the truth. The pain wasn't happening now. It was a ghost conjured by his mind, kept alive by his unwillingness to release it. Ryū's voice broke the silence. Pain is an emotion, and emotion is memory brought to life. You feed it by holding on to the past. Starve it, and it will fade. When Kaito opened his eyes, he felt different, lighter, as though a small piece of his burden had dissolved. But he wasn't free yet. The memory still lingered, though its grip seemed weaker. How do I starve the pain? Kaito asked. Ryū smiled gently. By living here and now. Pain cannot thrive in the present. Kaito nodded, determined to try. For the first time, he glimpsed the possibility of freedom. A few days later, Master Ryū summoned Kaito to a rushing river that ran through the valley below the monastery. The air was crisp, and the sound of water crashing against the rocks filled the space. The master held a large, rough-hewn stone in his hands. Kaito, Ryū said, holding out the stone, take this and carry it across the river. Kaito looked at the stone, puzzled. Why? You'll understand, Ryū replied, placing the stone in Kaito's hands. The stone was heavy and awkward to hold, its sharp edges digging into Kaito's palms. He waded into the river, the cold water soaking his robes and numbing his legs. Step by step, he struggled to maintain his balance as the current pushed against him. The stone grew heavier with every moment, and his arms began to tremble. Halfway across, Kaito stopped. Master, this is too heavy, he shouted, his voice tinged with frustration. Ryū stood on the riverbank, calm and unmoving. If it's too heavy, why do you carry it? Kaito stared at the stone in his hands, the cold water swirling around him. The master's words echoed in his mind. Slowly, he bent down and placed the stone in the riverbed. The moment he let go, a wave of relief washed over him. His arms felt light, his balance steadied, and the river no longer seemed as daunting. He crossed the rest of the way with ease, his heart lighter than it had been in years. When he reached the other side, Ryū greeted him with a knowing smile. You see, Kaito, the stone was never the problem. It was your refusal to let it go. Kaito sat on the riverbank, staring back at the stone submerged in the water. He realized how much he had been carrying in his heart, memories, grudges, and pain. For the first time, he understood that letting go wasn't about forgetting but about freeing himself from the burden. As they walked back to the monastery, Kaito felt a strange sense of peace. The stone was still there, but it no longer weighed on him. The lessons of the river and the stone stayed with Kaito in the days that followed. He began to notice how often his mind returned to the same painful memories, replaying them like an old song. Each time, he tried to catch himself and focus on the present moment instead. It wasn't easy, but he felt the weight gradually lifting. One evening, Master Ryū invited Kaito to join him on a walk through the monastery gardens. The sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson. Ryū stopped by a small pond, its surface reflecting the vibrant colors of the evening. "Do you see how still the water is?" Ryū asked. "Yes, master," Kaito replied. Ryū bent down and tossed a pebble into the pond. Ripples spread out across the surface, disturbing the reflection. "Your mind is like this water," Ryū said. "Pain is the pebble that stirs the ripples. But notice how, with time, the water becomes still again. This is the nature of life. Disturbances come and go, but the stillness is always there, waiting for you to return to it." Kaito watched the ripples fade, leaving the pond calm once more. He realized that his pain was like the pebble, a momentary disturbance in the vast stillness of his life. That night, Kaito sat under the stars, reflecting on all that he had learned. He thought about the scarred tree, the bowl of water, the stone in the river, and now the ripples in the pond. Each lesson seemed to build on the one before, guiding him toward a deeper understanding of himself and his pain. For the first time, he felt a sense of gratitude for his struggles. They had brought him here, to this place of growth and peace. The following morning, Kaito approached Master Ryū in the monastery's main hall. Sunlight streamed through the wooden lattice windows, illuminating the space with a warm, golden glow. Bowing deeply, Kaito spoke with newfound confidence. "Master, I think I'm starting to understand. Pain is not something I need to fight. It's something I need to learn from." Ryū smiled, his eyes twinkling with approval. "You are beginning to see clearly, Kaito. Pain is a teacher, not an enemy. It shows us where we are holding on too tightly, where we need to grow, and where we need to let go." Kaito hesitated. "But what if the pain comes back? What if I forget these lessons?" The master reached into his robe and pulled out a small, smooth stone. Handing it to Kaito, he said, "Carry this with you. Whenever you feel pain, hold it in your hand. Remember that pain is not permanent, just as this stone does not become heavier when you carry it in your pocket. It is your relationship with the pain that matters." Kaito took the stone, its cool surface grounding him. "Thank you, master. I think I'm ready to face the world again." Ryū placed a hand on Kaito's shoulder. "Remember, the stillness you seek is always within you. No matter what storms may come, you have the power to return to it." As Kaito left the monastery, he felt a profound sense of clarity. The mountain path that had once seemed steep and unforgiving now felt like a journey of possibility. Each step forward was a step away from his old burdens and closer to the freedom he had found within himself. The world beyond the monastery was unchanged. Its challenges and uncertainties still loomed, but Kaito was no longer the same. He carried with him the lessons of Master Ryū, the wisdom to face pain with acceptance, and the understanding that his scars were not signs of weakness but of growth. Kaito's descent from the mountain felt different from his arrival. The path was the same twists and turns, the same towering trees and rushing streams, but his perspective had shifted. Each step felt lighter, as though he were no longer weighed down by invisible chains. As he reached the base of the mountain, he encountered a small village nestled in the valley. The sights and sounds of daily life unfolded before him. Children laughing, merchants bartering, and the distant clang of a blacksmith's hammer. Kaito realized how much he had avoided such scenes in the past, too consumed by his pain to appreciate the world around him. As Kaito entered the village, he noticed a commotion near the town square. A young boy was crying, his knee scraped and bleeding. The boy's mother fussed over him, trying to soothe his tears. Kaito knelt beside the boy and smiled gently. "It's okay to cry. Pain is just the body's way of reminding us to care for ourselves." He pulled a clean cloth from his satchel, dampened it with water from a nearby fountain, and handed it to the mother. The boy looked at Kaito with wide eyes, his tears slowing. "Will it stop hurting?" he asked. "It will," Kaito said. "But even if it doesn't right away, you're stronger than you think." As the boy's mother thanked him, Kaito felt a deep sense of peace. By helping someone else, he realized how much he had healed himself. His pain had taught him compassion, patience, and resilience. Kaito continued through the village, offering small acts of kindness wherever he could, a comforting word to an elderly man, a helping hand to a merchant struggling with his wares. With each interaction, he felt more connected to the world around him, as if his heart had opened to possibilities he had once ignored. For the first time, he understood that pain, when embraced and understood, could transform into a source of strength and wisdom. As the days turned into weeks, Kaito began to rebuild his life in the village. The lessons he had learned on the mountain shaped his actions and thoughts. He became known as someone who listened deeply, offered wise counsel, and extended kindness to all he met. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Kaito sat by the village well, reflecting on his journey. The stone Master Ryū had given him rested in his palm, smooth and comforting. A traveler approached him, weary from the road. "You look peaceful," the man said, sitting beside him. "How do you find such calm in a world full of pain?" Kaito smiled, recognizing the same yearning in the traveler's eyes that had once consumed him. "Pain is not the enemy," he said. "It's a guide. It shows us where we need to grow, where we need to let go, and where we need to heal. The trick is not to fight it, but to understand it." The traveler listened intently as Kaito shared the lessons of the monastery. The scarred tree, the stone in the river, the ripples on the pond. By the time Kaito finished, the traveler's face had softened, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "Thank you," the traveler said. "I feel like I can face my burdens now." Kaito nodded. "You can. The strength you need is already within you. You just have to see it." As the traveler departed, Kaito felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He realized that his journey was not just about healing himself. It was about helping others find their own path to peace. His pain had not disappeared, but it no longer controlled him. Instead, it had become the source of his wisdom, a reminder of the strength he had gained. From that day forward, Kaito lived with purpose, sharing the teachings of the mountain with anyone who sought them. The stone from Master Ryū remained in his pocket, a symbol of the burdens he had once carried and the freedom he had found in letting them go. Kaito's story spread far and wide, inspiring others to embrace their pain, transform it, and find the stillness within themselves. And so, the teachings of the wise master lived on, carried like ripples through the waters of life. Pain is not something to fear. It is a part of life, a teacher that helps us grow. When we stop running from it and start listening to it, we discover strength, wisdom, and a profound peace that was within us all along.